The great hall of stars was silent as the final vote was cast. It echoed across the chamber in a cold mechanical tone. Guilty. Earth, the youngest member of the Galactic Council, had just been declared a threat to the balance of the galaxy. The Council, a powerful assembly of ancient alien civilizations, sat in their seats of judgment, their eyes glowing with what they called wisdom, though to the humans watching, it looked more like fear. Earth's ambassador, a calm yet tired woman named Dr. Elena Maris, stood tall as the council speaker listed the charges. Excessive technological growth, refusal to follow standard protocol, unpredictable behaviors in colonized sectors, and, most dangerously, innovation that broke established laws of science. The word dangerous echoed often, not because Earth had attacked anyone, but because humans had grown faster, learned deeper, and challenged more boundaries in a few decades than many species had done in thousands of years. Earth had reached the stars late, but it had raced forward like a storm. No one saw coming. Dr. Maris tried to defend her people. She spoke of peace, of curiosity, of cooperation. She reminded the Council of the lives Earth had saved during the Plague on Relin 9, the black hole rescue missions, the joint research shared freely. But none of it mattered. The vote was already decided. One by one, the Council members raised their sigils of agreement. Unanimous. Earth was to be banished. Every wormhole leading to Sol would be closed. All trade, communication, and transit would be cut off. Earth's outposts were ordered to shut down. Its science vessels were recalled under threat of destruction. Even friendly species were warned. Any contact with humans would be seen as betrayal. The decision was final. The Council believed they were removing a ticking bomb. They believed Earth would crumble in isolation, that without access to the galactic network, humanity would collapse in on itself, that fear would break them, and history would forget them. They were wrong. Back on Earth, the skies above the cities darkened as returning ships blinked out of Council lanes. For a moment, the world held its breath. From the icy moons of Jupiter to the sunlit domes of New Australia. On Mars, people asked the same question. What now? Panic stirred. There were riots in some sectors, despair in others. But something else was building too. Not in the streets, not in speeches, but in laboratories, war rooms, and secret gatherings. The leaders of Earth, from nations and colonies, once divided by borders and history, came together under a single banner, the Terran Accord. They met in deep underground bunkers, surrounded by silence and stars, and agreed on one thing. Earth would not beg. Earth would not break. The Council had cast them into darkness, so now they would master it. The Terran Accord began in silence. No grand broadcasts, no loud speeches. But beneath the surface, factories roared to life. Engineers began designing ships that did not need Council routes. Scientists began studying the wild, unexplored edges of space beyond what the Council had mapped. These were places no one dared enter, regions of dark energy, unstable space, and gravitational anomalies. The Council had called them dead zones. Earth called them opportunity. Earth's best minds, free from alien rules, started building something new: void drifters. Ships made not for safe travel, but for surviving chaos. Crewed by AI co-pilots that could adapt and evolve mid-flight. Powered by early-stage phantom engines, rumored to bend time itself in microbursts. Everything the Council feared about humanity, its boldness, its speed, its creativity, was now being poured into a new mission. To explore the void the galaxy had ignored. As months passed, the world changed. Cities became quieter, focused. Children began learning star physics in place of old textbooks. Old rivalries faded, replaced by a shared goal. Humanity, for the first time in centuries, had no one else to follow, no allies to wait on. No guides to please, just the stars and the darkness between them. But where the council saw fear, humans saw frontiers, and they began to build not just ships, but a future. The first void drifter, named Pioneer One, was launched in silence. It didn't head toward known trade lanes. It vanished into the unmarked dark, its destination unknown. Days turned into weeks. The world watched, waiting for word, for signal, for failure. Then, on the 40th day, a signal returned. Not just survival, but discovery. A new energy stream. An uncharted exoplanet. Proof that the void was not empty, but filled with untouched wonder. A spark ran through humanity like lightning. More ships followed. Explorers, scientists, builders. The Sol system, once cut off, became a hive of silent ambition. Terran stations were built on asteroid belts. Biohabitats were floated near rogue planets. Earth's moon became the launch cradle for deep void expeditions. Earth didn't collapse. It expanded not far away. Deep in council space, rumors began to spread. Whispers of human ships seen near the Veil Rim, of strange technologies, of outposts built in places thought uninhabitable. The council tried to deny it, tried to silence talk. But in their hearts, they knew the humans hadn't been defeated. They had simply been set free. And on Earth, beneath the northern sky, Dr. Maris stood once more in her observatory, watching as Pioneer 2 vanished into the stars. Behind her, a plaque held the words agreed upon by the Terran Accord at its birth, a quiet promise whispered in darkness. If they cast us out into the dark, then we will master the dark. The Council thought they had ended Earth's story. But in truth, they had only written the first chapter. The stars beyond the Council's borders had always been ignored, left blank on maps. Marked as unstable or labeled with ancient warnings, no one dared to question. This uncharted space, known only as the Void, was a region the Council feared and avoided. But for humanity, cast out and abandoned, the Void was not a warning, it was an invitation. With no safe paths left, Earth turned its eyes to the forgotten dark. The first steps were uncertain, risky, and silent. But they were bold. Using every scrap of knowledge, Earth's best minds created a new kind of ship, the Void Drifter. These were not elegant like Council vessels. They were not built for comfort or diplomacy. They were forged for survival. Their hulls were made of void reactive alloys that bent and twisted with the chaos of hyperspace. Inside, they carried self-learning. AI co-pilots, not bound by old codes, but designed to think, learn, and protect their human crews at all costs. At the heart of each ship pulsed a glowing core, the prototype of the Phantom Drive, an engine unlike any other, built to skip through fragments of time and reality without falling apart. The first test flights vanished. Some returned weeks later, scarred and silent, carrying only fragments of data and whispering, tailies of black holes that blinked like eyes, and currents of light that pulled ships sideways through time. Others never came back, but failure did not stop them. Earth had no other path, and humans, driven by both need and hunger for discovery, only pushed harder. Each failure taught them more. Every mission rewrote what they thought they knew about. Space, teams of scientists, engineers, and explorers worked day and night, not in secret, but in unity. No longer bound by alien politics, they made progress faster than ever before. The void itself was not empty. It was wild, filled with broken stars, spinning gravity wells, and radiation storms, but also with treasures the galaxy had long forgotten. Human expeditions found dark matter fields floating like oceans in space, rich in energy. They located rogue planets' worlds with no stars, drifting alone, yet still alive with strange ecosystems. These became the first new colonies. Floating biohabitats were deployed, using living materials that could grow, adapt, and heal. On one such planet, named Erebus 9, they found strange ruins half buried under ice-massive stone-like machines that hummed with dormant power, older than any known civilization. These were the precursor vaults, the remains of a race long lost to time. Earth had stumbled upon the footprints of something even the Council had missed. Each discovery pushed humanity forward. Each risk opened new possibilities. Life in the void was hard, but it made humans stronger. Crews adapted. They trained under intense gravity shifts, learned to survive in magnetic storms, and lived in habitats where walls changed shape based on need. Even the AI co-pilots began evolving, forming bonds with their human counterparts, developing personalities, and in some cases, making decisions faster and better than any human command could. Earth, once seen as reckless, was now quietly becoming something new, not just survivors, but pioneers of a frontier no one else had dared enter. As months turned to years, the Void Drifter fleet expanded. Small stations dotted the dark, acting as waypoints, research hubs, and emergency shelters. These places had no names in council charts, but humans gave them titles born of legend Whisper's Edge, Hollowgate, the Spiral Nest. At these outposts, data was shared freely, crews rested, and new missions launched. The Terran Accord, once formed in desperation, now stood as the guiding hand of a bold civilization that refused to fade away. And though the Council still believed Earth was lost, strange signals had begun to leak across the edge of known space encrypted. Transmissions in human code, sightings of impossible ships vanishing into black holes and reappearing weeks later in different sectors. Traders whispered of silent vessels with glowing drives that never needed fuel and of machines that folded light around themselves as they passed unseen. A few brave explorers even claimed to have met Terran crews strong, quiet people who spoke little but carried knowledge no council school had ever taught. But Earth said nothing. No grand declarations, no announcements of return. The Council had closed the gates, so Earth built its own. Using phantom drive technology, Terran engineers began constructing phase rifts, temporary portals stitched from gravity and light, opening short paths between remote systems in the void. What once took years now took days. Slowly, carefully, the humans began stitching their own network across the dark. And always, at the edge of these operations, the precursor vaults stood watching. Each one revealed more secrets maps, energy nodes, strange language carvings, and each one hinted at something buried deeper, something Earth had not yet reached. But they would, because Earth had changed. It was no longer the planet that had begged to be part of the Council. It was no longer the outcast. In the silence of the void, surrounded by chaos and mystery, Earth had found purpose. It had built tools that no one else could understand. It had grown stronger in exile. Every mission into the dark added to its legend. And that legend began to spread not through war, not through conquest, but through quiet awe. Across scattered stars, in lonely stations and passing ships, beings whispered of humans who sailed the unknown, of a race that turned exile into expansion, of explorers who faced the black and thrived in a Terran command hub orbiting Neptune's far side. A captain looked over a new map etched in glowing lines across a star map, dozens of markers blinking in the void, each representing a human crew, a mission, or a discovery. There was no longer fear, only curiosity, only the next unknown to explore. And in that vast, endless silence, Earth had become something more than the Council had ever imagined. Not just survivors, not just explorers, but masters of the uncharted. And still, they went deeper. It began as whispers, faint rumors carried by traveling merchants. Quiet messages passed in forgotten languages, fragments of sightings buried in sensor logs. Most of the Galactic Council ignored them. After all, Earth had been banished long ago, sealed behind wormhole locks, cut off from trade, knowledge, and support. The Council believed humans were gone broken in their isolation, lost in the dark, forgotten like a failed experiment. But not everyone was so sure. A few older Council members recalled the way humans had once moved fast, curious, always asking the questions others were too afraid to ask. Those memories returned with an edge of unease when reports began to surface near the Veil Nebula, one of the last charted zones before the endless unmarked regions of the void. A powerful council species known as the Tyric, proud and dominant. In that quadrant, had sent a cruiser to investigate strange energy signatures far beyond their border posts. They expected to find a drifting station, maybe some malfunctioning beacon. Instead, they came face to face with a ship unlike any they had seen before. Sleek and completely silent, it moved as if it knew exactly how the space around it worked bending. With gravity slipping between currents, dancing through radiation fields with no visible shields. The Tyric hailed it, scanned it, even tried to lock onto it. The ship didn't respond. It simply turned, shimmered once, and disappeared gone, in a way that their sensors could not explain. Not cloaked, not jammed. Simply ... no longer there. But they had seen enough. The hull bore a symbol subtle, etched in silver across its wing, the Terran Accord. Shock turned to confusion, then fear. The Tyric, known for their strength and control, returned to the Council shaken and unsure. They reported not just a sighting, but a challenge, not from an enemy, but from a people the Council had erased from their thoughts. The Council convened in secret, reading the Tyric's report in cold silence. Most dismissed it at first. Some called it human mimicry. Others blamed pirates using stolen tech, but then more stories began to surface. A mining convoy near the burned stars of Cellin 4 reported seeing strange stations in the distance, massive structures, orbiting dead asteroids. Too new to be ruins, too advanced to be built by the nearby species. One scout ship captured a blurry image of a ring-shaped portal flickering open and closed, with light patterns never seen before. The energy readings matched nothing in Council databases. In quiet corners of the galaxy, other races started listening. The smaller species, those often ignored by the major powers, had always been curious about humanity. Some remembered the kindness humans showed before the banishment, the way they shared medicine, helped rebuild after disasters, and offered ideas freely instead of keeping them hidden behind technology restrictions. These species had little to lose, and so they began sending quiet signals into the dark, coded in old Earth frequencies. To their surprise, they were answered, not with weapons or threats, but with knowledge maps to forgotten worlds, medical formulas, agricultural systems designed for barren planets. No demands were made, no alliances were forced. Just help, shared with no strings attached. These species called them ghosts of Earth, but they knew the truth. Earth hadn't died. It had grown. Inside the council chambers, the mood began to shift. Meetings grew longer. Proposals were made to track every sector beyond the Veil. Budgets were increased for surveillance programs. But the fear behind these actions was clear. The Council didn't understand what Earth had become. Their last known image of humanity was a broken planet cut off from power. But now, ships appeared with tech the Council couldn't trace. They flew without standard drives. Their signals avoided interception. Even their language had shifted simpler, sharper, and layered with code. The Council had built their power on structure, predictability, and control. But Earth had been forced to evolve outside those walls. And what emerged from the dark was something new, not bound by tradition, not slowed by politics. Meanwhile, In the hidden Terran stations scattered across the void, humans continued their quiet progress. Their AI co-pilots now acted as full partners, managing ship systems, defense protocols, and even field decisions. Many human explorers had undergone light cybernetic upgrades, not for dominance, but to survive the extreme environments of the void. They could withstand magnetic waves, extended exposure to dark matter, and mental strain during phantom drive. Jumps. They no longer looked exactly like the humans the Council once knew, but neither did they try to hide it. In one such mission, a Terran science vessel known as Orchid Reach uncovered an ancient vault buried beneath the frozen crust of a rogue world. Inside, they found records and a forgotten dialect descriptions of a lost species that once built artificial stars, and warnings of a galaxy-wide event that had erased them. Earth didn't just study the vault, they reactivated it. And from it, they gained insights the Council had never dreamed of. But Earth remained silent to the Council. They made no demands, no contact, no return. Their message was clear in their absence. They didn't need the Council anymore. And that silence was louder than any fleet. Back in the Council, unease turned to argument. Some members wanted to reach out and offer Earth re-entry quietly, respectfully. Others feared it was too late, that Earth would never forgive. The younger races on the Council questioned the wisdom of banishing humanity in the first place. But none of them truly understood what Earth had become. They had judged a seed and buried it in the dark, expecting it to rot. Instead, it had rooted itself in the void and grown into something powerful, quiet and unknown. And somewhere, in the deepest edge of explored space, a Terran captain stood at the helm of a black-winged vessel, watching the stars shift on the edge of the phantom drive. Behind her, in the silence of the command deck, her AI whispered, "Council scans detected. Observation distance. Safe. They're still watching." She smiled faintly and gave the order. Let them? Because Earth had no intention of returning to its old place in the galaxy. It was no longer seeking approval. It had found something better: freedom. The silence between Earth and the Galactic Council did not last. As the whispers turned into undeniable signs, new star systems lighting up with Terran signals, ships flying routes thought unreachable, small species choosing to follow human science over ancient rules, the Council grew restless. The idea that humanity had not only survived, but advanced without them, was something many could not accept. Pride, once hidden beneath layers of tradition, now rose like smoke in their great chambers. When reports arrived of Council species quietly reaching out to the humans, trading, learning, even migrating to Terran-run colonies, the High Seat declared a new law. Any cooperation with Earth, any alliance or shared data would be treated as a punishable crime. Sanctions were placed. Patrols were tightened. Council propaganda painted humans as dangerous rebels who had stolen knowledge and twisted science. But it was too late. The galaxy had already seen something different. They had seen that Earth, in its quiet exile, had become something greater, not because of power, but because of principle. The Terran Compact, though unofficial, began to grow an alliance not based on status or bloodlines, but on shared respect, innovation, and the hope of something new. Then came the moment the galaxy could no longer ignore. Without warning and without ceremony, Earth unveiled its Void Fleet Armada. These were not warships in the traditional sense. They made no threats. They entered no battles. Instead, they moved through the stars like shadows, silent, sleek, impossible to track. Their presence was felt in action. A labor colony under Council rule woke one day to find its guards gone and the workers freed. A border outpost that once forced trade taxes now operated under new leadership, distributing supplies instead of hoarding them. In each case, no blood was shed, no fire was seen. The Terran fleet never appeared on scanners. They were simply there, and then they were gone, leaving change behind like the wind. Species long ignored by the Council saw something they had forgotten hope. For the first time in centuries, they were being heard. Not because they were valuable, but because they mattered. The Council panicked. They believed a silent invasion had begun. But when they tried to respond, they realized something chilling. The Terrans were always 2 steps ahead. Their ships avoided detection. Their communication signals bent through distorted stars, using a technique the Council had never seen before. In one stunning move, Terran agents managed to disable an entire Council surveillance grid, not with missiles or attacks, but through data. Using a wave of self-writing viruses, they tricked the system into thinking it was still online. Meanwhile, Terran operatives, hidden in light patterns bounced from solar flares, moved through locked regions unseen. Council forces sent to counter. Them found only empty space and fading echoes. The problem wasn't that Earth had become strong. It was that Earth had become smart. Forged in isolation, every Terran advancement had been built from necessity, not luxury, not tradition. Their systems didn't follow standard patterns. Their tactics were born from a galaxy that had tried to bury them. In exile, humans had learned to do more with less, to adapt in real time, and to use silence as both shield and sword. The Council, by contrast, had grown soft in their certainty. Their fleets were large but predictable, their networks vast but outdated, their rules unchallenged for so long that they had forgotten how to think like explorers. They expected wars to start with declarations, but Earth had no need for words. Earth let action speak. Across Council space, more species began to turn, not out of fear, but respect. The Terran Compact opened its doors quietly, with no demands. New members were welcomed with education, tools, and voice. Each planet brought its own strengths. Some offered data long lost to the galaxy. Others shared rare elements, languages, or philosophies. No culture was erased. No traditions were forced away. Earth had learned its lesson from exile. It didn't seek to dominate, it sought to grow. Together, still the Council tried to strike back. Small skirmishes were launched near newly formed Terran colonies. Patrols were sent to intercept known Terran routes. But these missions failed, one after another. Council ships found themselves blinded by false stars, chasing phantom signals, caught in gravity wells Earth had mapped years ago. Even when they caught glimpses of Terran vessels, they could not follow. The phantom drive made Terran ships vanish. Like mist, slipping through physics as if the universe itself bent to their will. Inside the Council chambers, arguments turned into chaos. Some demanded open war. Others begged for talks. But none of them could agree on how to face a civilization they no longer understood. The Terrans had not fired the first shot. They had not claimed Council space. They had simply offered another path, and many were choosing it. The Council, once certain in its control, now saw its influence fracturing. And at the heart of that fracture was a truth they could not deny. They had created this. They had cast Earth into darkness, believing it would disappear. Instead, the humans had mastered that darkness, reshaped it, and come back not as conquerors, but as leaders of a different kind. In a hidden control room orbiting a blue dwarf star, a Terran commander watched the data flow across her console. Charts lit up with soft red signal systems shifting allegiance. Fleets rerouted without detection. Surveillance posts shutting down quietly. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. This wasn't about victory. It was about direction. Behind her AI partner adjusted the communication link. Another species had just joined the compact, bringing with it a strange form of deep-sea communication that might unlock a new method of energy transfer. The Terran commander nodded, The stars were quieter than usual when the Galactic Council called. An emergency conclave. For the first time in nearly a century, all core members gathered in the ancient chambers above the twin suns of Veralis Prime. The air was heavy with tension, not from war, but from something far more difficult to face regret. A council, once firm and proud, now stood on crumbling ground. Systems once loyal had left. Trade lanes had shifted. Voices once silenced were now speaking freely under the Terran Compact's banner. Humanity, the species they had banished and forgotten, had become the heart of a growing force they could no longer deny. And so, behind closed doors and surrounded by whispers, the Council prepared their offer-conditional re-entry for Earth. A seat at the table again, under a revised charter. An apology, carefully worded, calling their exile a misjudgment. Some thought it was a wise step. Others believed it was the last move they could make to save their fading influence. But none of them were ready for Earth's answer. The message arrived not as a speech or formal declaration, but as a calm transmission sent through all major networks, accessible to every species, not just the Council elite. The voice was steady, respectful, but clear. It came from an old-faced Dr. Elena Maris, now aged and speaking from a floating Terran citadel orbiting a dark star in the void. She looked into the camera not with anger, but with purpose. "We appreciate the invitation," she said, "but we do not seek a seat at your table. We've built a new one open to all, one that values growth over control, learning over legacy." The message was brief, but its weight was heavier than any weapon. The council chambers were silent. No votes were taken. There was nothing left to vote on. Out in the galaxy, the story was different. The void, once feared as a dead and broken expanse, now glowed with Terran-built life. Massive stargates, powered by phantom drives and aligned with dark energy flows, connected distant sectors with elegant precision. Bioengineered habitats hung like lanterns in space, sustaining life on planets where once nothing could grow. Old trade routes, once bottlenecked by council control, had been replaced with free corridors, guarded not by warships, but by shared protocols and peacekeepers from dozens of species. Science hubs floated near the edges of black holes, where Terran and alien minds worked side by side, studying things the Council had once declared impossible. The Terran Compact was no longer just a human effort. It was a galactic movement, led by Earth, but shaped by many. From the crystalline thinkers of Oron 5 to the aquatic historians of Korath Deep, every voice had space to speak, contribute, and lead. And every structure, every path, every innovation carried the same quiet reminder. This had all been built in the dark, far from permission earned. Not granted. As Earth's light grew, the old powers watched. Some council members tried to hide behind pride. Others quietly approached Terran diplomats, no longer to scold, but to ask. One by one, they requested access to void routes, asked for energy-sharing technology, offered cultural exchanges. For many, the hardest moment wasn't admitting Earth had risen. It was realizing that the Council had stopped rising long ago. Their systems had rested for centuries, safe in routines. But humanity had been forced to fight forward, to learn without help, to dream without permission. And in that struggle, they had found something no Council charter could provide. Purpose. In the void capital. Known as EC Prime, life buzzed with movement. Markets traded ideas more than goods. Children from many species attended hybrid academies, where AI shared lessons on physics, history, and diplomacy. Exploration ships launched daily, heading not into war zones, but toward wonder. One such ship, named Lumen's Path, left that very day, its course set for the edge of a newly mapped dimension. And beneath its launch platform, near the open plaza of the Terran Stargate, a small child watched the glowing engines lift into the stars. The child, not human, but born to a species the Council had once enslaved, stood beside their mother and pointed to the ring of light spinning high above. The stargate shimmered like a sunrise. With wide, curious eyes, the child whispered the words now etched into the new myth of the stars. They were banished into the dark, and they turned it into light. The mother didn't reply. She only smiled and placed her hand on the child's shoulder. Around them, thousands of voices echoed through the plaza, humans and non-humans alike, talking, trading, learning. This was not a world of conquest. It was a world of choice. And every being here had chosen the Terran Compact not because it demanded loyalty, but because it offered a future one, unshaped by fear, tradition, or old pride. In this final age of change, the galaxy had seen something it never expected, that greatness could rise not from dominance, but from resilience. That leadership did not come from titles, but from those who never stopped moving forward. Far above, in the command dome of the Stargate, a young Terran officer recorded a final log entry before jump protocols began. His voice was calm, hopeful. 70 systems linked. Over 200 species sharing knowledge. Every day, more. Ask to join. The void is no longer silent. It sings with life. They cast us out into darkness. We answered with stars. And with that, he tapped the control, and the gate pulsed open another journey, another light. This was the new age. Not of Earth alone, but of the galaxy reborn in the light humanity had left behind them, for all to follow.